LSAT reading comprehension is not about reading more. It's about reading with a job. Your job has three parts. First, find the author's point. Second, map the structure that supports it. And third, catch the attitude underneath it. That's it. And let me make each part of this crystal clear. Point means the takeaway the author wants in your head. Structure means how the author builds that takeaway. Background, claims, evidence, counters, and the wrap-up. Attitude means how the author feels. Are they approving, skeptical, mixed, or neutral? If you keep these three things in mind, you'll stop drowning in the details. Nobody needs you to memorize the date of every dynasty or beetle species. You need the argument, the scaffolding, and the vibe of the passage. That's it. And so we show our students how to spot those three in under 30 seconds so they're never going in blind. Now, here's what you've got to ignore on your first pass of the passage. Names, dates, examples, and numbers. They are tools on a shelf. You grab them only when a question tells you to. Now, here's the loop you're going to run as you read. Ask yourself out loud in your head after every important sentence and after every paragraph. Why is this here? What role does it play? Is it background, claim, evidence, counter, example, or conclusion? How does it connect to what came before? That loop keeps you engaged. It kills that tendency to zone out, and it forces your brain to assign a job to every part of the passage. I want you to watch out for signal words as you read. However, although, but, yet, in contrast, and nevertheless, those are all pivot word indicators. Thus, therefore, so, consequently are conclusion indicators. And for example, and for instance, are low priority details that you disregard unless a question asks you for them. Now here is a simple mental script you can copy word for word. Before you start, say to yourself, I'm hunting for the point, the structure, and the attitude. In paragraph 1, look out for the topic and the scope of the passage. In the following paragraphs, pause after the first sentence and label the job being done. Slow down for claims and speed up for examples. Now here is a quick example so you can actually hear this in your head. Paragraph 1, you're looking for the background and why this topic matters. In paragraph 2, you might notice that scholar A says religious. In paragraph 3, they talk about the problems with scholar A's opinion, and scholar B says political. Then in paragraph 4, the author says mostly political with a small religious role. Now, you didn't memorize anything here, you just mapped the debate between the two scholars, one focusing on religious, the other focusing on political, and of course the author reconciling the two or giving you their take on those two. Now here are some guardrails to keep you sharp as you read. I do want you to track who believes what and how the author feels. I do want you to tag the function as you go, the background, the claims, the evidence, and any counter premises or counter arguments. I don't want you to highlight everything. I don't want you to reread the same sentence 5 times. If it's dense, tag it and move on. Come back if a question points you to a particular line or paragraph. Now here are 2 tiny drills you can do today. The first drill just takes 2 minutes. Take any reading comp passage and write 1 sentence for the author's point, and then add 2 tags, its role and the attitude. The second drill takes you only 1 minute. Read only the first sentence of each paragraph in a passage and label each one's job in 3 words or less. Then read the questions and you'll notice how much you already know. And I want you to go into each reading comp passage with a mantra you're actually going to use. I'm not here to memorize, I'm here to find the point, map the structure, and catch the attitude. Say it once, then go into the passage, reading like a lawyer, not a librarian. Now that you know your job, let's talk about what actually deserves space in your head. You're only tracking 3 things: people and their positions, claims and the evidence for those claims, and the author's attitude. That's it. If it's a person or a group, ask, who are they and what do they believe? If it's a claim, ask, what are they saying in 1 short sentence? And if it's evidence, ask, who does this help? Person A, person B, or the author. Everything else gets parked until a question asks for it. Now here's what you ignore on the first pass: dates, numbers, proper names, examples, and technical details. They're not bad, they're just too heavy to absorb on your first glance. Treat them like tools on a shelf. You grab the right one, when the question sends you there. Now, let me give you 3 simple tools to make this automatic. Your first tool is the name position matrix. Suppose the passage mentions 3 voices: the historian, the critic, and the author. In your head, you want to build out a tiny grid. The historian is associated with economic forces. The critic talks about cultural forces, and the author says, mostly economic with a cultural twist. You've just mapped the debate in 10 seconds, no notes required. The second tool is claims and evidence. When you see a claim, you listen for its support, like studies show, or data indicates, or for example, you draw a mental arrow from the evidence back to the claim it serves. So later, if a question asks, which evidence supports X, you already know where the arrow points. Your third tool is the attitude thermometer. You're noting whether it's neutral, cautious, skeptical, or supportive. You're listening for tiny signal words like unfortunately, promising, problematic, unlikely, or overstated. And one single word can tell you the author's stance. And so when we tell our students to hunt for these words, their accuracy on tone questions jumps up real fast. Now let's make this concrete. Suppose you're reading a passage on medieval irrigation canals. Engineer A says canals boosted trade. Historian B says they mainly boosted local agriculture. And the author says trade benefits were real, but agriculture was the primary effect. So your matrix is set. Your arrows connect each claim to its examples, and your thermometer says each author is mildly supportive of B and cautiously respectful of A. Notice what we're not holding in our heads here: the exact river names, the year a specific canal opened, the number of tons shipped. If a question asks, of course, you can go and fetch it, but until then, hands off the details. Now here are some common mistakes and quick fixes. One big mistake is to highlight every single interesting little detail. The fix is to only highlight claims, counters, and the author's opinion. If everything is bright, nothing's going to stand out. Another mistake is losing track of who said what. The fix is to whisper the name and stance to yourself when a new voice appears, like person A talks trade, person B talks agriculture. The author says mostly B. Another mistake is treating examples like conclusions. Remember, examples are supporting actors, they are not the lead. They prove a point, but they are not the point themselves. Now here are 2 quick drills you can do today. The first drill is to take one reading comp passage, and for each paragraph, say out loud in one line who's talking, what's their claim, and what's the attitude. Stop there and don't chase the details. Your second drill is to skim the passage and collect only 5 signal words that reveal attitude or structure, like however, in contrast, notwithstanding, promising, and overstated. Then I want you to predict the author's stance in one sentence before you touch the questions. Now here's a simple checkpoint to see if you did this right. If I pause you after the passage and ask, who are the players, what do they want, and how does the author feel, you should be able to answer in 20 seconds or less. If you can do that, you're ready for the questions. But if you can't, you read too much detail and not enough structure. Now here's one line I want you to carry into every single passage. Track the people, the claims, and the attitude. Park the rest until you're asked for it. People think reading comp forces a choice. You read every word slowly or you skim and pray. Both of those are wrong. The right move is targeted skimming. You read some lines carefully and some lines lightly on purpose. You control your focus. You don't let the passage control you. Here is the step-by-step. First, lock in the foundation. You read paragraph 1 carefully. You ask, what's the topic? What's the scope? What problem or debate is on the table? You say one sentence out loud in your head. This passage is about blank. That is your anchor. Then you use the topic sentence test. For each new paragraph, you read the first sentence, you label the job in 5 words or less. Is it background, a new claim, evidence, counter, example, or wrap-up? Once you've labeled the job, you know how to handle the rest. Then you change gears on purpose. If it's a big claim or a counter argument, you slow down. If it's examples, data, or a description, you speed up. You note the gist, but you keep moving. You're not against details, but you're sequencing them. Then you've got to catch the pivots and listen for those key pivot words like however, although, but, yet, in contrast, and nevertheless. When you hear a pivot, your eyes should get big because pivots move the argument, pivots move the author, and no pivot should get past you. And next, you tag on your scratch paper, but you don't transcribe. You're using tiny tags, just a couple letters in your scratch paper. BG for background, CL for claim, EV for evidence, CT for counter, then a plus sign for approval, a minus sign for criticism, and a squiggle for mixed. That is enough. No essays, no art projects, no fancy highlighting. Then build a micro map as you go. At the end of each paragraph, you whisper your mini map. Paragraph 1 is background, paragraph 2 is claim A, paragraph 3 is counter B, and then paragraph 4, author sides mostly with B. 10 seconds, you're done. And when we tell our students to do this, their accuracy jumps and their rereads drop. Now here's what this looks like in real time. Paragraph 1 might set the stage. Carbon tax versus cap and trade. Paragraph 2 argues for carbon tax. You slow down. Paragraph 3 says, however, and lists problems with the carbon tax. You slow down again. Paragraph 4 introduces cap and trade with examples. You speed up. Paragraph 5, they say, therefore, the author prefers a hybrid model. So you slow down and nod. You don't memorize numbers, you map the argument. Now here are some common mistakes. Big mistake is rereading the same dense sentence 3 times. The fix, tag it as EV for evidence, and move on. Return only if a question asks. Another big mistake, treating examples like they're the point. The fix is, remember, examples support, but they don't lead. Another big mistake, losing the author in the crowd. The fix is, every time you see the author's voice, you mark it with a star. Now give yourself 30 seconds per paragraph to get the job label. If you hit 45 seconds and you still can't label it, you're collecting facts, not structure. So zoom out. Ask, what is this paragraph trying to do to the reader? Now here are 2 mini drills to build the habit. The first drill, topic sentences only. Read only the first sentence of each paragraph in a passage. Label each paragraph's job in 5 words or less. Then predict the author's view in 1 sentence. Now read normally and see how much of your predictions actually came true. The second drill is hunting for pivots. You scan a passage and circle every pivot word in 30 seconds. Then read the passage and slow down only at those pivots. You're going to notice your comprehension spikes where it matters. Now, of course, if a passage is only 3 paragraphs, you want to read a little more carefully. Short passages hide the main move inside examples. If the passage is dense science, you lean harder on the first and last sentences of each paragraph. Those carry the claim and the takeaway. The middle is mostly texture. Bottom line, read claims and counters carefully. Speed up on examples until a question asks. That is targeted skimming. You're not reading less, you're reading smart. And you will feel the difference by the time you get to the first question. This tool will calm your brain and speed up your answers. It's called the passage skeleton. A skeleton is a tiny map you build while you read. No full sentences, just 3 to 5 words per paragraph. The reason it works is that your brain can hold structure, but it cannot hold every detail. The LSAT rewards structure, so we map structure. Here's how to do it step by step. First, you read paragraph 1. Ask, what job did this paragraph do? Say it in 5 words or less. Then you jot it down on your scratch paper. Do the same for each succeeding paragraph. By the end, you're going to have a 1-line map of the entire passage. Your basic template might be that paragraph 1 provides background and setup. Paragraph 2 has claim A. Paragraph 3 talks about the problems with A and then goes into claim B. Paragraph 4 gives the author's take. Now that would be a default or standard passage, but passages come in different flavors with different structures. Here are some quick templates for the most common structures. The first is problem followed by solution. Paragraph 1 lays out the problem. Paragraph 2 gives you some attempted fixes that failed. Paragraph 3 gives you a new proposal, and paragraph 4 talks about why it works, but also provides some caveats. The second structure is the debate. Paragraph 1 lays out the issue and the stakes involved. Paragraph 2 lays out viewpoint A. Paragraph 3 lays out viewpoint B. In paragraph 4, the author weighs in with their take. The third structure is a reinterpretation of history, art, or science. Paragraph 1 gives you the standard view. Paragraph 2 provides new evidence. Paragraph 3 gives you a reinterpretation of that evidence, and paragraph 4 provides the implications of the reinterpretation. And the fourth structure is a study or a method, where paragraph 1 opens up with a research question. Paragraph 2 lays out the method. Paragraph 3 provides the results of applying that method, and paragraph 4 talks through the limits of the method and lays out some next steps. So you want to determine the structure as you read and plug each paragraph into the right slot. If a paragraph doesn't fit, label its job directly. Again, example, counter, a fine tune, or a definition. Now you want to keep your notes tiny and concise. As I said, BG for background, CL for claim, EV for evidence, and so on. Plus sign for positive or supportive, minus sign for negative or critical, and a squiggle for mixed or neutral. Now let's talk through some common mistakes when applying this approach. The first mistake is writing out full sentences. Remember, you want to jot down quick notes, 5 words max, no essays. This is a mini map, not a diary. The second big mistake is labeling content, not function. So don't write down, for example, bronze vessel's shape, write down X or example for A. Another big mistake is forgetting the author's voice. You want to star or mark where the author expresses their opinion because their opinion is key. That tells you the main idea, the primary purpose, and so on. You also don't want to change the skeleton during the questions. You want to refine things but not rewrite them. If your map is changing completely, that means you made some sort of mistake earlier in the process where maybe you were reading the details rather than the structure. So here are some quick quality checks to make sure you're going about it the right way. Can you say the whole skeleton out loud without the passage in front of you? Does your paragraph 4 label sound like a main point? Do paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 feel like opposing moves? If so, you're probably ready for the questions. Now here are 2 quick drills to lock this in. The first drill is the 30-second skeleton. You read a passage once, close your eyes, and speak the skeleton out loud. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4. If it's taking you more than 30 seconds, your labels are probably too long. The second drill is the reverse skeleton, where you take a released passage and look only at your skeleton from last time. Then answer the main point, primary purpose, and one function question using only the skeleton. Then verify it with the text. And what to do if you get lost mid-passage? Pause for 45 seconds. Read the first and last sentence of each paragraph. Then rebuild the skeleton from those. Then continue. This reset can save entire sections, and we see this with our students all the time. When we show them how to build a skeleton in under 10 seconds per paragraph, their rereads drop and their accuracy soars. Labels first, details later. Then you make the map and let it carry you. The good news is that reading comp isn't random. It's the same questions over and over. And if you learn those questions, you can stop guessing. The first main type of question is main point and primary purpose. Your goal should be to name the author's big idea and why they wrote the passage. Your first step to solving these is to say the passage in one short headline. Like the author says B works best, A has limits. Then match your prediction to an answer with the same scope and same attitude. Not narrower, not broader, not happier or angrier than the text. Common wrong answers will be either too narrow, too broad, they'll have the wrong attitude, or they'll only provide background with the setup, but not the author's actual point. So as a drill, after every passage, say your headline out loud in just 10 words or so max. If you can't, you don't actually know the main point yet. And so for this reason, when we work with students, we force them to articulate the headline before even looking at the answers. Scores jump as a result because the point leads the choices, not the other way around. The second big question type is the author's attitude or tone. Your goal here is to identify how the author feels. So you want to scan for charged attitude-related words like promising, flawed, unfortunately, overstated, unlikely, and encouraging. Then you place the attitude on a simple thermometer where a plus sign is supportive, a squiggle is mixed, and a minus sign is skeptical or negative. Now, common traps here are confusing someone else's attitude with the author's attitude, or mistaking interest in a topic for approval of that topic, or picking extremes like outraged or ecstatic when the text is mild. Instead, you want to pick safe tone words like qualified approval, cautious optimism, measured skepticism, reserved support, or critical of X, acknowledging Y. Again, more moderate is more reasonable, more likely to have been articulated by the author than more extreme language. And so you want to be able to point to at least 2 words or phrases from the text that justify the tone. If not, you're probably just guessing. The third question type to look for is specific detail or line reference questions. Your goal here is to retrieve exactly what was said. So you want to go back to the line in question, read 2 lines above and 2 lines below. Then paraphrase it yourself in 1 short sentence. Then pick the answer that matches your paraphrase, not your memory. Common wrong answers will have half-true twists where it starts off right, but ends up wrong, or copycat phrasing from the passage with 1 changed word that totally flips the meaning, or maybe mixing up who said what, so attributing Scholar A's opinion to Scholar B or to the author or vice versa. You want to match the direction, you want to match the scope, and you want to match the time. So as a quick micro drill, do 3 detail questions back to back where you've got to write a 6 to 10 word paraphrase before looking at the choices. Now, the fourth question type to look for is function or role questions. Your goal here is to explain why a sentence or paragraph is there in the text. In other words, you're asking, if this were a chess move, which move is it? Common roles might include background, claim, evidence, counter, example, definition, limitation, or conclusion. You want to look at a local role, what this chunk does right here, and the global role, how it advances the author's overall point. A common trap might be calling a counter an endorsement, or treating an example like a claim, or confusing background with evidence. Now here's a quick test to apply as you solve these. If you were to delete this sentence mentally from the passage, what would be missing? Your answer should describe that missing job. Now, as a quick micro drill, take any paragraph and label each sentence as background, claim, evidence, example, and so on. Then read the question and you'll see how the role answers pop right out. Now, the fifth question type, and this one's a bit harder, is inference questions. Your goal here is to pick what must be true or is strongly supported by the passage, even if not said verbatim. You want to answer these by using soft language. So look for answers that say suggests, consistent with, or best explained by, not proves, always, or the only. In other words, gravitate towards more moderate language, because more moderate language is more likely to have been suggested by the stimulus or passage in this case than more extreme language would. So you want to ask, can I back this up with 2 pieces of text? Does it stay inside the passage's scope? Does it avoid brand new claims, new causes, or universal words? Common traps would be causation leaps like X happened, therefore X caused Y, or universal quantifiers like all, never, or only when the text was limited. You also want to avoid reversals like mixing up who believes what or flipping direction. Now for a quick micro drill, from one passage I want you to write 3 soft inferences using likely, tends to, or consistent with. Then find the exact lines that justify each one. So bottom line, to pull this all together, before the choices, go in and say, what type of question is this? What's the right lens? And what traps should I expect? Then go to the answers and kill those traps on sight. Now, the way you're going to save the most time is not by reading faster, but by killing bad answers faster. Think of each answer choice as a suspect, Your job is to rule them out one by one with evidence from the passage. The first step is to predict. So before you read the choices, say one short prediction out loud in your head. Something like, the main point is that author prefers B, A has limits, or function gives counter to A. A prediction gives you a lens. You're policing the choices, not wandering through them. And as we often tell our students, if you don't predict, the choices will write your story for you. Don't let them. Now you want to run 3 fast checks for each choice. You want to do a scope check, an attitude check, and a logic check. A scope check is asking, does this go outside what the passage covered? An attitude check is, does the tone match the author's tone? And a logic check is seeing, does it flip cause and effect, mix up who said what, or overstate a weak claim? If any one of these checks fails, it's gone. Say the reason out loud, like out of scope, wrong tone, or reversal. Now you want to know the most common traps, the most common wrong answer choices. The first would be extreme language, like words like always, never, only, entirely, must, or proves. Reading comp passages are rarely going to be that absolute. If the passage didn't say it that strongly, you shouldn't either. The second big one to look for is out of scope. Might be true in the real world, but not discussed in the passage. If you can't point to a part of the passage, it doesn't belong there. The third is the half-true twist. It might start off with something the passage said, then quietly change it, change the scope, change the direction, or who believes it. It might feel right at first, but it ends up being wrong. The fourth wrong type is the reversal, which flips the relationship. Cause becomes effect, critic becomes supporter, A becomes B. The fifth one is comparison creep, where they inject more, less, or most when the passage didn't. If the author didn't compare, you shouldn't either. The sixth is a time shift, where they take a historical claim and make it current, or vice versa. So watch out for historically versus now versus in recent years. The seventh is a quantifier mismatch, where the passage says some or tends to, and the choice says most or all. It's got to match the size of the claim. The eighth is the attitude swap, where they attribute the author's praise or criticism to the wrong person or dial the intensity up or down. Measured skepticism becomes outrage, which of course is not the same. The ninth is background as point. They describe setup or context and pretend it's the thesis. Remember, background frames, it doesn't argue. The 10th is the function fumble, where they call an example a claim or a counter an endorsement. So you got to ask, if I deleted this sentence, what job would be missing? Now, you can always use safer, moderate language as a compass to guide you. If the passage was measured, you want to favor choices that also have measured language, like suggests, consistent with, tends to, may, often, in part, or one reason. You want to avoid choices that jump to extreme or courtroom-style conclusions like proves, the only explanation, cannot, always, or entirely. Now, if you come to a situation where two choices both look good, here are some tiebreaker questions you can ask. First, which one matches my prediction more precisely? Or which one uses safer language that mirrors the passage? Or for main point or attitude, which one could be the title of the passage? If you still can't decide, go back to the key lines in the passage, read 2 lines above, 2 lines below, and paraphrase in 10 words. Then see which one matches your prephrase. Now, here are some quick micro drills you can do today. The first would be trap flashcards, where you write one real wrong answer on a card. On the back, label the trap. Add the exact word or phrase that gave it away. Review these daily, and you will start seeing the traps even before you finish reading them. The second drill is the 2 alive rule, where on each question you force yourself to keep 2 plausible choices till the end. Write down 1 sentence for why each one could be right, then pick. This will train precision instead of the first good enough kind of habit. The third drill is to paraphrase first, and this one applies more for detail and inference questions. Before you get to the choices, write a 6 to 10 word paraphrase of what you expect the answer to be. Then pick the choice that most closely matches your words. If none of them do, You probably misread, so you want to go back. Now, here are some common mistakes and how to fix them. One big mistake is recognizing the words from the passage, so you picked that choice. But the thing is, matching the words is not matching the meaning. You want to paraphrase first, then compare. The second big mistake is that if you're afraid of, say, missing a detail, so you choose the specific one. But specific doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. You want to choose the answer that matches the point and the scope, not the one stuffed full of nouns from the passage. The third big mistake is running out of time and just guessing randomly. In this case, you want to go back to those common wrong answer choices we talked about earlier, find which one it best matches and eliminate based on that. Because if you know the wrong answers, that's going to be how you can knock them out fast, without rushing, without guessing, and without rereading the entire passage. Now let's talk about pacing. Under standard timing, you have 35 minutes to solve 4 passages. That's about 9 minutes per passage. So the goal is not to sprint, the goal is to pace yourself. Here is the standard base plan. You want to spend about 2 minutes and 15 seconds reading and building your skeleton. Then spend 6 minutes and 30 seconds answering the questions. That adds up to 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage, and you're doing that 4 times. So if you want a simpler version broken down, do this. Maybe 3 minutes for reading, 6 minutes for solving the questions. Now, how do you keep that pace without rushing? First rule, pick the passage order on purpose. Start with the one that looks most readable to you. Clearer topic, fewer dense names, fewer long quotes. Then you save the ugliest one for last. Getting one clean win early is going to give you momentum. The second rule is to lock the anchor pair first. Right after you read, you answer these 2 questions while your map is fresh: the main point or primary purpose, and the author's attitude or tone. These should only take you 30-45 seconds each. These 2 answers lock in your global view, and they make the rest of the questions that much easier. Then you want to do the questions in the order that protects your time the most. So after you do the anchor pair, you do the line reference and function questions next, and save the inference and accept questions for last. Why? Because if you lock in the global ones first, the retrieval ones next, and the soft reasoning ones last, you're stacking the easier wins before the heavier lifts. Now, if you're stuck between 2 answers for 30 seconds, flag it, mark it, move on, come back later. Do not sink 2, 3, 4 minutes into one question. You got to come back later with a fresh brain and a better map. And you want to triage those time suck questions, like the accept questions, the least questions, the parallel questions. You're saving those for last because they take the longest. So do the answers with 5 long sentences for whatever reason. Park them until you've cleared the short, direct questions out. Then you return with whatever time remains. Now, most questions should ideally take you 45 to 75 seconds. A few might take you 90 to 105 seconds. But anything past 90 seconds should earn a mark on your scratch pad. That mark means decide soon or move on. You also want to use checkpoints to manage your pacing. After passage 1, you should have about 26 minutes left. After passage 2, maybe 17 to 18 minutes left. After passage 3, only 8 or 9 minutes left. If you're behind by more than a minute or 2, you want to compress your next read down to 1 minute and 45 seconds. You want to let your skeleton carry the weight. And if you're in that situation, answer the anchor pair fast. Then hit all the line reference questions. Leave the toughest inference and accept questions for the last 90 seconds. You're going to get way more points this way than forcing a perfect read that you just don't have time for. Now, in the last 90 seconds remaining, go back to your flagged questions. Pick the ones where you already knocked out 3 choices. Trust in your earlier work. Choose and move on. If you've still got time, take one more look at the biggest point question in that passage. Never end on a brand new question in the final seconds. Now, here's how to practice timing so it sticks. Practice with the timer on and visible. Use the same split every time. Ideally, approximately 2 minutes and 15 seconds for your read, 6 minutes and 30 seconds for the questions. Say your time goals at the end of each passage. Write them on your scratch paper if you have to. And we've found that when we show our students this routine, their pacing smooths out in a week because the numbers become automatic. Now, here are 2 timing drills you can do today. The first drill is the 2 clock drill. Set one timer for 35 minutes. Set the other to loop every 8 minutes and 45 seconds. When the loop buzzes, you've got to be done with that passage, even if you have one question left. This builds your habit of moving on fast. The other drill is the 90-90 drill. For one practice set, cap every question at 90 seconds. At 90 seconds, you've got to pick or flag and move on. This removes the trap of just feeling like you need 20 more seconds. Now, here are some common timing mistakes and how to fix them. The first mistake is spending 4 or 5 minutes on your initial read of the passage. The fix is to cap yourself at 2 minutes and 15 seconds for a week. You will feel like you're under reading, and that's fine. Your skeleton will do the job for you. The other big mistake is saving the main point question for last. As I said, you want to do your anchor pair first. Your map is sharpest right after you read the passage. Another big mistake is letting one question blow up the entire set. The fix is the 30-second rule. If you're stuck at 30 seconds, mark, flag it, move on, come back later. So remember again, 8 minutes and 45 seconds on average per passage. 2:15 to read, 6:30 to answer, do the anchor pair first. If you're stuck at 30, mark it and move on. Say it once, then follow it. Pacing is a habit you can build over time. If you zone out during a reading comp, you're normal. And if you keep zoning out, it's a system problem, so we've got to fix the system. The first step is what I call a pre-read reset. Just takes 25 seconds. You close your eyes for 2 breaths, in for 4, out for 6, drop your shoulders and say this line in your head. I'm hunting for point, structure, and attitude. Open your eyes, then start. The second step is the 3-question loop that you want to run constantly. After any important sentence or paragraph, ask first, why is this here? Second, what role does it play? Is it background, claim, evidence, counter, example, or conclusion? And third, how does it connect to what came before? This loop keeps your brain busy assigning jobs, and busy brains don't drift. The third step is pivot radar, where your eyes get big for words like however, although, but, yet, in contrast, and nevertheless. Pivots move the argument. So underline in your mind, whisper pivot, and slow down for the next 2 lines. I want you to remember that reading comprehension is not about loving to read. It's about reading with purpose. And your purpose here is simple. Find the author's point, map the structure, and catch the attitude. This is a skill you can train just like any other skill. I've seen students go from hating reading comp to loving it, not by doing 100 more passages, but by changing how they read. So if you've ever zoned out, panicked, or thought, I'm just not good at this, here's the truth. You're not broken, you're just untrained. And the good news is, you can fix that. So say to yourself before every passage, I'm here to find the point, map the structure, and catch the attitude. That's how you stop reading like a student and start reading like a lawyer.